Discover the brotherhood that sharpens you. The ISI community is free for 30 days. Join now at isibrotherhood.com/community. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the ISI Brotherhood podcast. I'm Aaron Walker, your host, and I couldn't be more excited. Listen, the interview today is going to be around mental strength and physical strength. And most men train for size and not strength. They train for aesthetics and not function. But what if we had a true measure of strength wasn't how much you can lift, but how well you can live? Well, today's guest has coached Olympians, pros, and champions around the world. But what makes him truly exceptional is how he trains people for life. Coach Mike Boyle has spent decades redefining what it means to be strong, not just in the gym, but in leadership, purpose, and legacy. Today, we're diving into how functional strength can transform your body, your mindset, and even your relationships. Coach Boyle, welcome to Iron Sharpens Iron Brotherhood. Good to have you today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, one of our previous members, Zach Lush, highly recommended you, and he called me. He was all excited, and he said, Big A, I've got somebody that would be amazing for your organization, for your listeners, and to get this guy would be amazing. And so I think he worked on you and twisted your arm a little bit and got you to be my guest, but I couldn't be happier that you're here today. Listen, let's jump right in. You've trained world champions. I said that in the bio in the introduction just now. But let's kind of start with the foundation. What does strength mean to you beyond the physical?
I think beyond the physical, it really relates to discipline, to the ability to be consistent, because when we look even in strength and conditioning, which is what I do, or personal training, or however you want to look at it, we're kind of in all those areas now. But the really strong people are the people that keep showing up. And if you keep showing up, and I guess there's probably a life metaphor in there somewhere, but if you keep showing up, you will get better, and you'd mentioned that you're 65, I'm 66, and half the battle as you are aging is to keep showing up. And I always say, and there's a little bit of morbidity to this, but we are all going to lose the game. Right.
Eventually, right. We're all going to check out, right?
We're all going to check out. And so it's just a matter of how good is that time. I was lucky to be a physical education major at Springfield College in the 1970s and early 1980s. And they used to always say, hey, this won't add years to your life, but it may add life to your years. That's what they said to us in the 70s and 80s. Now they know that it may add years to your life. So you may be able to look at this and think, I will not only live longer, but I will live better.
What's the catalyst for you to getting into this space? Like, give us a little bit of a background for context.
My father was a coach. I grew up in this. So this was something, I guess, I didn't think that I was destined to do it. But now that I'm 66 and I'm sitting here, I probably was destined to do this. My father was a teacher, a coach, a helper his entire life. He died, unfortunately, really younger than both you and I are now. But his wake, I remember his wake and his funeral because it was like an all-day festival in terms of kids he had in school lined up. I still meet, my wife has met people out in restaurants that had my father in school who will rave to her about my father and about the impact that he had on their life. So I was lucky. I was brought up in the right situation at the right time, and I kind of stumbled my way along for a while trying to figure out, okay, exactly where am I going? And the strength and conditioning thing sort of ended up being there for me right at the right time.
Did your dad get an opportunity to see you flourish and to have the impact that you've had?
Did not. I was 25 when he died. He has no idea.
Yeah.
Sure, he does have an idea, but he
does
not see it within my lifetime. And that's probably, if I have a singular regret, I would love to have had that opportunity for him to see. I would love for him to see that his grandchildren ended up being good kids and good athletes, and that I was able to get out and have the kind of impact that he had, which was really profound. He was the type of guy that, again, if you went to Malden, Massachusetts, you would see the Arthur P. Boyle building. And the Arthur P. Boyle building is named after my father. And there's a little picture that's tiled right into the front of the building of my father and mother at a senior prom, because my father was the guy who, he was at every game, he was at every prom, he was at every concert. Uh, he he never missed an event, particularly for the people that he was, I guess, the people that he felt like he was serving, the kids at his school.
Yeah, I know you're proud of him, and I bet he would be equally proud of you. And I'm sure the
I
impact
hope
that you
so.
had today measures up with your dad as well. You know, you've been coaching for decades now. Would you say that your definition of success has evolved when you started MBSC in 1996 to now?
Oh, without a doubt.
What's changed? Yeah,
Completely.
what's evolved?
I think before it was much more about the jersey and about who you were training and about the notoriety, and it was much more about the
Mhm.
things that you were going to get. And I read a quote one time. It said it's very important to learn to use things and love people, as opposed to the reverse. So it's that, like, I've gotten much more worried about who knows about me or what's kind of revolving on the outside part, and much more tuned into, are we really making an impact? Because for us, particularly with our older clients now, which it wasn't something that I ever thought about training when I was younger, I was very focused on athletes. We really are impacting a lot of people at a really important time in their life. People like us who suddenly have the time and the disposable income and all these things to be able to lead a better life, but sometimes can't get out of their own way. I had a very successful, wealthy client one time, and one of the things that he told me, he said, "Mike, everybody will spend money on their body." He said, "It just is a matter of when." He said, "It might be a really nice managed care facility. It might be an unbelievable casket." He said, "But they're going to spend the money." And it was the best
Mm,
sales pitch anybody ever gave for me to give. I say it all the time to people in my business when they say, "Oh, I don't have time," or "It's expensive." I look at them and think, in like your audience, you run the company, so you got as much time as you want to give yourself,
yeah.
and you're making tons of money. So regardless of how expensive it is, it's not too expensive, and you're going to spend it anyway. So
Mm,
why not do it in a really proactive way that's going to improve the quality of your life? And my client, Steve, who I loved, he had one of these guys. He had a massage therapist and he had a yoga teacher, and he was training with me. And he was like, I'm gonna spend it now and hope that it pays dividends as I age.
yeah. My wife and I had this discussion. My wife and I both avid. We're not athletes, but we're avid. We're aspirational in keeping and taking care of ourselves. And we had a discussion at dinner the other night. My wife was saying something about how expensive some of the food that we were eating. And I made a similar comment. I said, we can spend it on good food or we can spend it on medicine. And we're going to spend it. And it's kind of the same as what you're saying. What would you say to the person that's listening out there to now, to our audience, small business owners that are young or maybe they're a little bit older, in regards to getting started? Some of these guys are like, man, I wish that I had, they're 50 years old or 40 years old and they're not athletic. What would you say to those persons? Is it too late or can they get started now?
I would say, one, it's never too late. I would say start tomorrow. I'm a bad quote machine, but I love the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The
Mm,
second best time to plant a tree is tomorrow or today. And so I would say get out and do it. Find somebody. The hardest part in our field, honestly, in this fitness field, is finding somebody good to work with. One of the things that I would recommend to somebody is to go and watch some sessions and go and look and see what you see in terms of the quality of the interaction between the coach and the trainer and what the facility is like. And are you going to be comfortable there? Is this person going to be the person that you want to be working out with? Because we've got a very, I'm going to try not to swear on this podcast, but it's kind of a hard ass field where people think they have to uh,
mm,
sort of push you. And I'm always looking and thinking, I'm going to nudge you, but I'm going to consistently nudge you along. I'm just going to keep nudging you. I'm not going to stop nudging you to get you to move forward. I'm probably never going to push you, particularly if you're 65 years old. I'm going to think we're just going to nudge and nudge and nudge. And I'm going to tell you that if you don't get worse, you're getting better.
mhm,
Because
mhm.
aging, particularly as you get past 50, the decline gets very steep and very rapid if you're not doing anything. And that's why you say, is it too late? It's never too late. But It's never too soon either in terms of the sooner that you start. The other thing I would say is don't work out like it's your high school football team, which
Right.
is what, again, another bad quote, but the number one injury cause in old men is them thinking that they are young men. And
Mm.
so it's being able to get out there and realize, hey, I'm not 25 years old anymore. And I talk about this all the time, but my big rule is, does it hurt? If I'm going to ask you to do an exercise, I'm going to expect you to say to me, that exercise does not hurt. I may feel it in my muscles, but I don't feel it in my
Sure.
joints. I don't feel it in my back. I don't feel it in my neck. And then I'm going to ask you the next day, how did you feel? I like to ask people, how do you feel when you get out of bed in the morning?
Mm.
Because that to me is the really big barometer. If you get out of bed and said, oh my God, I couldn't move, I struggled to move around the first 10 minutes, I'd say, okay, we did too much.
Mm-hmm.
But if you said, gee, I got up, I want to get up and feel like I did something. I
Yeah.
exercised yesterday. That's the right feeling, because I don't know if you've ever read Jeff Olson's book, The Slight Edge. It's one of my favorite books, but
I have not read it, but I'd like to.
yeah, you should put it on. You would love it. But
Yeah.
Olson basically says that the slight edge rule number 1 is show up.
Mm.
And slight edge rule number 2 is continue showing up. And slight edge rule number 3 is show up with a great attitude. And if you can get people to come to the gym on a consistent basis and to be there with a really positive attitude, which is going to come from being in a really positive environment, you can get a lot done.
Mm. One of the reasons that I enjoy working out is I'm able to do my daily activities and be able to complete them. Like, we live in the woods and we've got hills around us, and I like to go out and work with a chainsaw and a saw and haul limbs up and down. And like, I couldn't do that if I didn't work out. There's no way I could go up and down these hills and do that. Getting stuff out of the attic, going up and down the stairs, playing with my grandkids, these are the things. Plus, I've seen about a 30 to 40% increase in the weights over a 2-year period just working out with a trainer. He's our age as well, and he's been training for years. And he takes the same philosophy as you. He's like, hey, I'm going to nudge you along. I'm going to push you a little bit, but I'm not going to push you to a point to hurt you. But if we do these things actively every single week, you're going to see a lot of result out of it. Many guys, though, they're chasing muscles and performance, but you really emphasize functionality. What's the biggest misconception that men have about training for life instead of training for looks?
I think the biggest misconception that they have are all of those things that were built up when they were younger, because this is a pretty young field when you really look at it. When I started in strength and conditioning, it didn't exist. So 50 years ago, there might not have been one strength and conditioning coach. There were not personal trainers. It just was a very, very different world. And we've been heavily influenced by sports like bodybuilding and powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting and things like that. And a lot of people think that's what training is supposed to be like. You described my vision of functional training, right? Functional training gets you ready to do whatever it is that you want to do in life. Like for you, it's being able to lug the chainsaw and being able to cut up a tree and move the pieces around, which depending on the size of the tree can get pretty heavy, right? And
Sure, they can.
the ability to do those types of activities of daily living. What you want is to do things that enhance your life, not enhance your muscles. The muscles to me are secondary. And they're going to come. If you train smart, your muscles are going to be fine. One of the things we notice, if you came to my facility, we have about 300 adult clients. So 300 clients between the ages of, say, 25 and 90. And everyone looks younger than they are, every single person. If I walked around with you and said, this is our oldest client, is actually a retired doctor who just retired at 89 years old. He was actually my son's pediatrician. Still in the gym, still working out, still pushing sleds and lifting weights. His wife, Judy, is 85 years old, still in there after a couple of knee replacements, working out. And it's that ability to figure out what your activities of daily living are that are realistic. That's the other part. Sometimes people are unrealistic. They want to run a marathon or climb Mount Everest or do it, whatever. And I don't know if that's something for us to be thinking about as we move into our 6th decade, but it's just that ability, as you said, to get up and down from the floor. We see people, I've seen men come in and watch them take 10, 15 seconds to get off the floor and thought, wow, this guy really needs our help. If we can just get him to the point where he can transition from, say, being on his back to being standing, and he can do that in 2 seconds. That's a massive change in his life. And we start thinking as we get older, number one issue for us is falls.
Yeah.
So if we're training with machines and we're doing bodybuilding type stuff, that really isn't the type of fall prevention that we need. We do a lot of unilateral work, a lot of things on one leg, a lot of things people might look and say, oh, that's more of a balance exercise. And I think it's not more of a balance exercise, but if you tell me that you struggle with it because you don't have good balance, then I'm going to tell you that that makes it that much more important for you because you've already identified the weak link. And the weak link for us as we get old is balance. Falls, I just saw a stat the other day. They said if woman falls after 65 and breaks her hip, her life expectancy is about 5 years after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that balance becomes very important at that point, doesn't it? Right?
Yes, it does.
No question about it. Coach Boyle, you've built one of the most respected strength facilities in the world, without a question. I mean, there's no doubt about that. What have you learned about leadership and culture from running a team of elite coaches?
I think the one thing I've realized is that culture, everything is about who you hire and how you train them. So again, as I said, I'm just a cliche machine, but I always say I can make you smarter, I can't make you nicer. And so for us, we're going to really put a lot of emphasis on hiring the right people. And the right people, I always say, in the fitness world, the right people are people who like people, not people who like exercise. I actually tend to shy away when I see a resume and people start listing their hobbies as powerlifting or bodybuilding or things like that. I think that they're probably not for us because those people are probably going to be very self-consumed. I want people that are going to be consumed by our clients. I want people that are really going to think all the time about, can I get my clients better? And then, I want you to get your workout in. I would say our coaches, they probably train a minimum of 3 times a week, but it's not their priority. It's not their life's work. They're not worrying about themselves every minute of the day. And in the fitness world, a lot of times you can run into people who are really, really egocentric, really self-centered. So we want to not be egocentric. We want to not be self-centered. We want to be really client-centric. And that, I think, creates a really good culture. You get good people. Training people who know you care about them creates a really good environment.
What gave you that disposition? Because I would say that's not the norm in your space.
I think a little bit of doing it wrong in the beginning. I think I was probably a little bit of because I started out, I was dealing primarily with athletes. But then I started to realize even the athletes, like the better athletes, the professional athletes, you couldn't badass them. You couldn't, they were having none of that. And I realized that very early on, that if you didn't genuinely care about these people, that they probably weren't going to listen to you. Then I started to realize that carries over into every aspect of life. And I think the team sport world, unfortunately, is very dominated by what people see in college, where your athletes are kind of captive. Now we've got a little bit of different world now with the transfer portal. The last 5 years have been different. But in general, a kid would come to a college and just you'd tell them what to do and they'd have to do it. And a lot of people thought that was good coaching. Then we started to see what was happening at the professional level, and they realized, wow, when these guys are making a lot of money, you can't coach that way anymore. And you started to see more people, I think, talk what we might call soft skills. And I don't know if soft skills are soft, but I do think that soft skills are really important, and your ability to be relational and your ability to get people to understand that you actually care about them makes a much bigger difference, because you can no longer lead by authority when you start to have people who make more money than you. Because you don't, I used to look at, when I first started, I had Josh Beckett, who was a great pitcher for the Red Sox. And Josh, in the beginning, didn't like me. He told me, he said, I don't think I'm going to like you. I like the other guy that they got rid of. And he said, I might not even talk to you. And I went home to my wife and I said, had a really good first conversation with Josh Beckett today. He said he didn't know if he was even going to talk to me. And over time, I just wore him down. I killed him with kindness. Yeah. And after a certain point in time, we were joking and having fun. And he realized that he did, in fact, like me, and that I didn't know what I was doing. And that those were two things that, from a career standpoint, had value for him.
You earned his respect because you know what you're doing, right? And then you weren't arrogant. You killed him with kindness and you won him over. I love those kind of stories. Hey, I'm Aaron Walker, founder of Iron Sharpens Iron. Every successful man needs a band of brothers to push him to grow spiritually, personally, and professionally. Each week, I meet with like-minded Christian business owners in our mastermind groups. We share wisdom, tackle challenges, and we hold each other accountable to grow, not just in business, but in life. Don't do life or business alone. Join the brotherhood that will challenge, encourage, and sharpen you. Visit isibrotherhood.com and take the first step today. You said, and I've read that you say a good coach with a mediocre program beats a great program with a mediocre coach. How does that principle translate to business and life leadership?
I think it's exactly the same in terms of, I always tell people, I could write a business book, but it would be really short. And it would basically be treat your employees well, treat your clients well, charge a fair price, right? I mean,
You're going to make plenty of money. You'll do
yeah, you're
good.
gonna make plenty of money. It's so, I tell people all the time, it's so not complicated and it's so not specific to the fitness business. But no matter where you are, when you go in there, you like the people that are in there and they're doing their job effectively, you're probably going to go in there again. I don't care if that's a restaurant, a dry cleaner, a gas station, whatever it is. You're going to go to that place and you'll probably willingly pay a higher price for that. And yet, I think people are constantly going about it in the opposite way. I put a lot of emphasis on how we're going to treat. I don't even like the word employee. I try to never use. I get angry when people. I can tell. Let me step back. I was with a guy at a conference the other day, and he introduced me to the person that was with him, and he said, "This is Joe. He works for me." And I immediately had this thought process that I don't like this guy very much. Because when I introduce people, I would say, "Hey, this is Joe. We work together."
Mm-hmm.
Because I would want to look at the guy and think, you already know I'm the boss. The only reason I'm telling you I'm the boss is because you wanted to say it. And you wanted to feel better about yourself. So
That's so good. I like that, Michael. That's good.
So I think, and that's, people always talk about, you can tell, how people treat the waitress or the waiter or whatever it is. All that stuff really does matter. And I think when you're particularly in small business, I think it's different. If you invented a product or something like that, maybe you get away with not being as good a person. But I think if you're in a service type business, which is what we are, then you're going to sink or swim based on that interpersonal reaction and then your ability to train other people to have that same interpersonal reaction. Same thing. We don't put up with, if you're not a good person, you're not working for us, period. And I don't care how good you are at your job. And I made the mistake. I had some people early on that weren't good people and were really good coaches, and I put up with them, and it was costly in a lot of ways, psychologically, financially. But the last 20 years, I've gone totally the opposite direction in terms of, anyone that comes to our facility, and Zach would tell you this, he's been there a bunch of times, you get greeted repeatedly, almost to someone will say, "You're the 10th person that said hi to me so far." And when I hear that, I'm glad. When I think, okay, you got overload here today, that's perfect. There were too many people who came up and introduced themselves to you and said, "Do you need anything?" That's perfect. That's exactly the environment that we want.
You can smile at that. You've coached athletes at every level, from college students to pros. What do you believe separates those who succeed long-term from those who fizzle out?
Well, I'm going to say the one bad word, genetics. There's no question. There's no denying the genetic part of this. We've seen some really not great, probably, human beings become incredibly successful in the sports world because they have great genetics. If we take that one factor out, then it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning in terms of discipline and the ability to continue to show up. Because I've had NFL guys who've got into the second or third year in their career, and suddenly I had one guy whose name I will not mention because I love the guy, but he was like, "Mike, I'm moving to Miami. I love Miami. I love the women. I love the scene." The next year, he was a backup. The year after that, he was cut. He was a starter when he went to Miami. And I remember thinking, that's not a good decision. But unfortunately, I've gotten to the point where I've probably stopped trying to counsel people out of their own bad decisions, because it's a bit of a fool's errand when you get these people. Some people think, "Hey, I got there. I'm at the top. Now it's going to be easy." Another one of my favorite quotes, anytime life gets easy, make sure you're not going downhill, right? And it's like there's a lot of people who
That's good.
end up in those situations, and very quickly it's over. And then, particularly in the professional sports world, it's devastating because you have the reverse income curve, where your highest earning points are very, very early in your life, and you can never reproduce that again. The average person's kind of income curve is very linear and very uphill, and a professional athlete's is unfortunately very linear and very downhill. And so the guys that really are disciplined, I've had some great guys who've made it into their late 30s and early 40s, and they tended to be guys that lived a little more modest life, guys that were okay with driving maybe not the newest car, guys that were okay with living in a house that was maybe not quite as ostentatious. And those are the guys that have had the better, probably end of life experience or end of career experience.
Any favorite athletes you've got out there with a good mindset, a good work ethic that you've seen really do a great job in every regard?
I've got so many, honestly. I am very proud to say that I have coached 2 team presidents of NHL teams. I think I have either 5 or 6 guys that are general managers of NHL teams that I have coached. I have one of my former clients, Craig Breslow, is now the general manager of the Red Sox. We've got a lot of really, really successful, but in all of those guys, the one thing that those guys all did have in common was they were all long haul guys. They were all guys who very, what I guess we might describe as kind of a lunch pail mentality. They showed up every day. They did the work. They were never looking for shortcuts. And now they've become really good executives within the sports world.
There's no silver lining. There's no magic bullets. You've got to show up and do the reps, right? How do you build trust and accountability in your athletes and staff? And what can fathers or husbands and business leaders learn from that approach?
I think you show up, it's by showing up and by being present, honestly. I think that's the biggest thing that fathers can do that, as husbands can do that. I've had my blips. I've been better as a father. I wasn't as great as a husband probably in the beginning. There was a lot of time that I was absent, and there was a lot of time that I convinced myself that I was absent because I was doing it for my family. And I think sometimes you realize you're doing it to your family, not for your family, and that they'd be much happier with you present and a little less money than you absent and a little more money. I think we very often say we're doing it for our family when the reality is we're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for our own ego, for our own gratification. So I think that would be the biggest thing for me, is just realizing, be present. There is no meeting that is that important. There's nothing that's going on that's more important than your kid's game or your wife's dinner or whatever that is. Because and we all know, we've heard the cliches, right? You're never getting that back. You're not getting that back. No one is going to come back and say, "Oh, Mike, you get to go back and do it over and get to that Little League game or whatever it was, or you get to go to that dance recital that you blew off because you had a meeting." And there's too many of us who are, I think, kidding ourselves more than anybody else in terms of that we're doing that. I mean, there may be situations where you're not the boss and you got to be there. I get it. I had that. When I worked for the Red Sox for 2 years, I did miss some stuff because I had no choice. Now that I have a choice, I don't miss anything. I miss nothing because I am the boss. I decide what my day looks like. If I need to get up 2 hours earlier to get done what I need to get done so I can leave 2 hours earlier, then I do that. And I think more people should approach it from that kind of a lens.
Mike, I tell the story. I came home at 40 years old with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers. And my wife said, "Hey, thanks for our beautiful home, all of our tangible possessions, but I feel like a single mom." And it ripped my heart out. It was like, man, I've got to fix this, because you only get one chance for those kids. You don't get a do-over.
That's right. Exactly.
And that's what you're saying, regardless of who it is or what you're doing. In ISI, we teach about being vulnerable, being transparent and authentic. Is there a role in that for coaches? Do you think great coaches and leaders need to be open about their own struggles?
I do, yes. And I've gotten better about that as I've aged. I've done a couple of talks, a couple of keynote presentations where I've talked about the struggles in my marriage and the fact that, my wife told me before we even had kids that if we didn't go to marriage counseling, she was out. And I really thought for sure, I've told this story a bunch of times and it's amusing. I thought we were going to go to marriage counseling, and this counselor was going to tell my wife how crazy she was and how lucky she was to have me and what a great guy I was and how I was working so hard. And we got into this counseling situation, and the first thing that happens is we go in, and it was a woman. And I thought, okay, it's 2 against 1. It's going to take me 2 days to get this squared away as opposed to 1 day that I had allotted for this. And we both kind of pitched our side. My wife talked about he leaves at 5 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't go home until 11 o'clock at night. I don't see him awake for days at a time. And then I told my story about, well, I'm working for the Bruins and I'm working at Boston University and I'm doing all these great things. And the woman looks up at me and said, so you think what you're doing is normal? And I was like, three sessions. I think I'm up to 3 sessions now because I don't think I didn't win session 1 here. And we were there for about 6 months, once a week. and I learned a lot about myself because, again, I was brought up by a father who was, again, a tremendous person, revered in the community, but not present.
Yeah.
Because he was totally dedicated. The reason Malden High School building is named after him is because he was dedicated to Malden High School. And I really thought that was my definition of success as a child. I want to be like my dad. I want to be like this guy that everybody at school looks up to and everybody in the town looks up to. But I realized that there's sacrifices to that. And luckily, thank God, my wife, 36 years of marriage later, she's still here. But thank God she was willing to say that 20 years ago and say, hey, or 25 years ago now, that I'm not doing this if this is the way that it's going.
Yeah. So you did learn a lot about yourself. That introspection really probably made you reorient your focus and do some things different. You say that your job is to make people better. How much of that is mental and emotional versus physical?
I would say realistically, I'd probably go 60-40 on the mental emotional, to be honest.
Wow.
I do think the physical part is really important, but I also think that getting people to feel better about themselves is probably more significant and will have a bigger long-term effect on their life. And that's why I think people enjoy being part. They would look at our gym and think about being part. They're part of a community. They're part of a group. And they're part of a group that has a really positive message in terms of, yes, we obviously want everybody to be healthier and live longer. But we don't, there's not a lot of, it's not like there's testing, we're not rewarding aesthetics. We're not rewarding strength. We're not rewarding any of those things.
Right.
We're rewarding attendance and camaraderie.
Yeah, that's good. I love the culture of your gym, and I've never even been there. Even hearing you describe it makes me envious. I would love to have a culture like that in our gym. What habits and disciplines or daily practices keep you personally sharp, not just as a coach, but a man pursuing growth and purpose? What are the habits?
One, I get up early, and I think one thing you will notice, I do not know many successful people who do not get up early. I'm not saying that you cannot be successful if you don't get up early. I just have not had a tremendous amount of experience with people. I don't know anybody in my life who said, I sleep till 10 every day and I'm doing great. I'm killing it.
I'm in your camp 100%. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, number one. I try to journal. That's something that I went to later in life. I have something they call a 1-sentence journal. It's actually sold under the brand name Happiness Journal. And I try to just write every morning, and I try to make that writing something positive, something about something good that happened yesterday. And it might just have been what happened yesterday. And the fact that yesterday happened was good. I'm a reader by nature. So I try to read every day. And it's funny, there's a guy that I really like. His name is Alistair McCaw. He's I think he's actually South African by birth, but he's also he's a mindset coach. And he talks about the idea. He said, everybody every day you should get 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of foam rolling and stretching, a 20-minute nap, and 20 minutes of thoughtfulness. And I love that. I nap. I'm a napper. I'll nap every day, and I'm not ashamed. I used to be ashamed of the fact that I didn't want people to know I took naps. Now I brag about it because I think it's the best thing that you can do. And I really think about that 20 minutes of thoughtfulness sometimes and think, okay, I just need to text so-and-so who I just thought about. Maybe I thought about you and said, hey, we haven't spoken in 6 months. And just texting.
That's good. Reaching out. Don't need anything. You just want to reach out and say, hey.
And I always think, and you always want to be ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to reach out to somebody when I need something. I never want to be,
Right.
because I get too much of that in my life, unfortunately. A lot of times
Yeah.
when the phone rings, I usually know it's someone who needs something.
They want
And I'm
something.
very happy to deliver that for them usually if I
Sure.
can do that. But I also like to be someone who is, even if it's calculated, I'm one move ahead. I've continued to check in, and I don't need anything. I'm not asking you for something, just saying hello, hoping you're well, and kind of
Yeah,
move
that
on.
serves you well. That'll go a long way. And then when you do need something, it's pretty easy to get when you're calling, checking on people,
Yeah.
right, all the time.
And
Would
it's
you say that
I try
would
to
you
teach.
say
Oh, sorry. I just try to teach my kids that too, though. In terms
Yeah,
of sometimes they'll say, "Oh, can you get so and so to do this for
yeah,
us?"
yeah,
And I'm like, "Yes." I'm not going to, but if I asked them, they would. But I'm not going to ask them because that's not who we are.
right.
I'm not going to spend my life getting you free tickets or whatever it is that you might be in search of at this particular moment. And again, I think that's a lesson they've learned. They know not to ask me about things that if it's important, they ask about it. If it's unimportant, they can do
Yeah.
without.
Mike, there's a few people I know that are influential, and I have people do me the same way. They know I know them, and they'll call me and they'll say, "Hey, can you have him reach out to me, or can I?" I say, "No," because what have you done for him? You've not read his books, you've not attended his classes, you've not done anything, and all you want is something from him. And you want to use my relationship with him to get that, rather than you doing the reps and doing the work. And it's the same way. Like we got to do our part. What have the world's best athletes taught Mike Boyle about humility, resilience, or maybe faith in the process?
I think one, and this is going to come off as really crass, but some of the world's best athletes have taught me that some relationships are purely transactional, and that's that these people are not going to be in your life. They're not your best friends. They're not going to be there for you 20 years later, and that's a really hard lesson to get. But it's a
Mhm.
really valuable lesson in life because it makes you value the real friends that you have. Like I have a lot of friends now. They have no idea. People will be surprised when they realize what I do. They'll come into the gym and they'll be like, "Wow, I didn't realize the gym was this big." Or I didn't know. I was talking to a kid about a World Series ring. He said, I didn't know you had a World Series ring." I'm like, "That's because I don't wear my World Series ring and I don't tell anybody I have one." But I realized that the really important people in your life probably will not be people that you were involved in transactional relationships at some point, no matter how good that relationship was.
Mhm.
And there'll be a few, you'll have some good ones, but the vast majority, they will be these kind of ships passing in the night scenarios where, okay, you and I were both in the same place at the same time, and we both
Mhm.
served each
Mhm.
other well, and now you're on to whatever it is you're doing, and I'm on to whatever it is I'm doing. But
Yeah.
my life kind of revolves around the 5 square miles around my house or around my gym, and that's where I really need to put my time and my energy. So I don't put a lot of energy into to to chasing fame or to kind
Uh-huh.
of, hey,
Uh-huh.
there was a time when it was really cool to sort of be on the
Mhm.
fringes of some of these things and think that you're going places that are cool or you're doing things
Mhm.
that are cool. But with a very few exceptions, uh, I've learned that it's just the close circle that really is going to matter to you.
Last couple of questions. Looking back on your decades in strength and conditioning, what legacy do you want to leave, not just in the industry, but in the lives of the people you've touched?
I've thought about this one a lot and I've answered this question a lot. The number one thing I wanted to leave is I want people to look and think Mike Boyle was really successful and he was a really good guy. I always think if they can say that I was a
Mm.
good guy and that I was a good husband and that I was a good father, then I will have had all of the impact that I needed to have. Because I think then at least I can show people that, hey, you can be successful in this field and not be a jerk. You can be successful and still be a good husband and still be a good father and still be even a good
Yeah.
coworker. I want to
Mm.
be a good coworker. I don't want to be someone
Yeah.
who thinks, God, I hated working for that guy, or God, I hated my time at Mike
Yeah.
Boyle Strength and Conditioning. I want people to think I loved my time at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. Maybe I left because a better opportunity presented itself, but at no time was I unhappy or did I feel that I wasn't treated fairly? That's all I really want, truthfully.
Mike, my final question, if a man is listening today and he wants to build strength that outlasts his muscles in his body, in his marriage, and his mission, where should he start first?
Showing up. in all of those places. Show up at the gym, show up at the game, show up for your spouse. I think that's the number. Honestly, you can't beat showing up. You very rarely find somebody that shows up consistently that you don't like. So I think that's if you're going to do one thing, that one thing is if you can get there, and then you can maybe bring along some humility with you, then you're going to really do well.
Mike, it's been great to have you today. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. It's been phenomenal. I knew it would be. I was excited when Zach arranged this, and so you've brought a lot of value to us today. So I just want to publicly thank you for being here. For the listeners, just remember that true strength is functional. It's not flashy. Strength is about doing life well, moving efficiently, leading intentionally, and staying consistent when it matters most. Coaching is leadership with accountability. Whether you're training athletes or leading a family, your presence and example matter more than your program. And finally, legacy is built through discipline and simplicity. The best results in body or business comes from consistent execution of simple, proven habits over time. Do what Mike says. Just show up. This week, I want you to train for function, not appearance. Pick one area of your life that's gotten out of shape. Maybe it's your physical routine, your connection with your kids, or your consistency at work. Design one functional rep for it, a daily repeatable action that makes you stronger where it counts most. Because we here at the ISI Brotherhood, we don't just lift weights, we live lives. So glad to have you today on the ISI Brotherhood podcast, and we'll see you again next week.